Just giving y'all a little shimmy because I was dancing during that intro. Welcome back to another episode of Com.unity by MODECANADAROCKS. I am your host, Hillary LeBlanc, and in this week's episode, we are talking about the Canadian costume, exploring how fashion helps express the many identities that exist side by side in Canada today. Our first guest is Dee Hernandez. Dee is a Cuban-Canadian Afro-Cuban Jazz vocalist, singer, songwriter, and performer whose music radiates with the heartbeat of her heritage and the soul of contemporary artistry. Based in Atlantic Canada, whoop whoop shout out, she blends Afro-Cuban jazz, soul, R&B, and modern fusion into a sound that is unmistakably her own. Next up, we have none other than Karen Ferguson. Karen is a designer, curator, and creative entrepreneur. She is the founder of Toronto Designers Market, a retail platform dedicated to championing independent Canadian designers, artists, and artisans. Since launching the concept in 2015, Ferguson has created space for emerging creatives to test, develop, and grow their brands within a collaborative retail environment while introducing shoppers to the breadth and quality of Canadian design. Finally, we are also sitting with Jodi Goodfellow, a Canadian fashion entrepreneur and the founder of Startup Fashion Week, an innovative platform dedicated to supporting emerging talent across fashion, business, and technology. Since launching the organization in 2014, Goodfellow has helped reshape the Canadian fashion landscape by creating accessible opportunities for independent designers, models, photographers, and creative entrepreneurs often overlooked by traditional industry systems. This conversation breaks down how we dress to express as Canadians. And now we also have, very excitedly, while we get everybody on the screen, our first community giveaway. If you happen to leave a question or a comment within the first 15 minutes or the first half of our live episode, which means you have to be watching right now and typing now, and you stay until the end, you will be entered for a draw to win a $250 gift card to Toronto Designers Market. Now, I know exactly how that money can be spent and where it can go. We will choose the winner at the end of the episode and tell you how to contact us for your prize. And now the guests. All right. I see Karen in Toronto Designers Market. I see Dee Hernandez in New Brunswick, and I see Jodi Goodfellow. How are you all doing?
Very great.
Doing fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome. So, Karen, I want to start with you. You've done so many things in the fashion space, as we named in that bio, from being a designer, a buyer, and now with Toronto Designers Market, you have truly built a community space where people can gather and shop. Designs are almost always Canadian in Toronto Designers Market. I think I've encountered very few while shopping your racks that aren't. Why was it important to build a store that is almost 100% exclusively Canadian?
I think it was important for us to build a space that is almost 100% exclusively Canadian, to give Canadian designers an opportunity to not only showcase their collections, but to sell their collections to the public. So that was what we wanted to do. We didn't see a space that was doing that in a consistent way.
Amazing. I mean, you have been for years now, and I love that the store is always cycling through, adding new people. We've got our Runway to Retail panels that I am biased because I am a part of. But the way that you amplify Canadian is so phenomenal, and I absolutely love to see it. Now, one of the people I have brought to your store is none other than Dee Hernandez. Now, I do want to shout out Dee because this is a live show and lots of things can happen. And if you've seen our promotion, you might have seen that we were supposed to have Malik from the band Free Label on the show. And Dee, within an hour, was able to turn it around and come down because unfortunately Malik is unwell and might have to go to the hospital. So we are sending Malik well wishes. We are also shouting out Dee for being a powerhouse who brought us to her studio in like such a short period of time. So Dee, first of all, my biggest thank you for joining and being a guest on this episode, and like a perfect episode, Canadian costume, which we will get into why I think you're perfect for this.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, hey, our pleasure. As I mentioned, you've had the privilege of going to Toronto Designers Market, and I know that style is so important to the way that you show up on stage, that Dee Hernandez persona, the way you dance and vibe, and the intentionality that you bring to that space. Can you tell people a little bit about your sound and the role that fashion plays in your identity when you're on stage?
So my sound is cultural, but at the same time, cultural from both places that I come from. So my native land in Cuba, as well as the culture that I have grew up here since I was 16 years old. So for me, when I dress and the way that I bring the fashion within my music is also very important. But to me, I like to represent myself first, also my culture and the culture that I've grew up, or the cultures that I grew up with sonically in Canada. And so yeah, it's pretty much all a mood and how I feel, as well as a cultural aspect that I always want to bring as a stamp into my sound.
That's amazing. And now, speaking of your sound, I did ask, since you're sitting next to a piano, if we could have the smallest teaser of your single, because you just came out with a new song, and I'm so excited to have heard bits and pieces of it through our friendship. But can you give the listeners who are alive a little?
Well, we'll see if you can capture that over the mic. The song is called Odumile. Rompiendo el silencio, me desenvuelvo en mi ser. Lo que llevo adentro es mucho más de lo que ves. Voz de mis ancestros despiertan poros en mi piel. Y en ese momento siento un futuro bajo mis pies. Diles la verdad de nosotros. Diles quiénes somos. Somos mucho más que cenizas. Somos arte, somos fe, la luz del universo, el divino secreto. Odumile. Odumile, Odumile, Odumile.
Listen, if you weren't a believer before, you need to be downloading this music now, which I will say again at the end. But thank you for that little treat. That is so exciting.
Oh my goodness.
Everyone should go download it. You sound absolutely phenomenal. I love
it. Thank you.
Now, Jodi, Startup Fashion Week has been a place emerging designers can showcase their designs for 12 years now. Time flies when you were having fun. Some of these people that I've recently had the privilege of interviewing have even traveled across Canada for this amazing opportunity. How have you seen Canadian fashion evolve through Startup Fashion Week and through your own platform, Jodi? Jodi, did you hear me? Ooh, you might be having a lag. Jodi, can you hear me? Let's see. We'll just give it 1 second. Dee and Karen, can you both hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you.
Both hear me. Okay, well, we'll give it 1 more second. Jodi, can you hear me?
I can't hear anyone. I can't hear Hillary at all. I can hear everyone else.
Okay, well, we will get our tech team to message Jodi. We'll figure it out. In the meantime, Karen and Dee, since you can both still hear me, Karen, I will ask you about the intersections of Canadian heritage, culture, and community. I've always found it super interesting that I find it very interesting how Canadian fashion can be perceived, because what is the Canadian identity? To me, it starts with indigeneity, of course, but then we have all these amazing people that have shown up in this space, all of us included, all sort of come from away. So I'm very curious, like how you would define Canadian fashion and how our diversity as Canadians actually works to support the industry that we currently have.
So for me, I find it a little bit difficult to define Canadian fashion, because I feel like it's always changing and shifting as new designers come on the landscape. and how they interpret their own Canadian identity. So I don't, in doing this, I don't feel that I've ever seen anything that I could say is, this is the Canadian identity. It's always shifting. So yeah, that's my answer for that part. And the second part of your question, could you repeat that for me?
My second part was, how do you think our diversity supports the industry as a whole? So how do we all work together, I think, in our differences to make the Canadian landscape, whether you want to talk about fashion or art, a better place? Because I think that it's a better place because of all of us.
It is absolutely a better place. I think that it all works together because it's complementary. Each style, each design complements the other. You know, for us, when we're looking for new designers or new artists or new brands to bring in the store, we always focus on how that one complements the other to create that beautiful space of Canadian design and Canadian art. So I think it's always complementary.
And can I ask you just, and I know this because I know it anecdotally because you and I are close, but I know a story that once upon a time somebody walked in and they saw your beautiful black face at that store, and they thought that meant every single design had to be Black owned or African owned, when we know that you've had people from all backgrounds in the store. So can you speak a little bit to your ethos of who gets to be in Toronto Designers Market?
So it is a very curated process to be in the store. Designers have to present us with their portfolio, lookbook. We then have to look at the pieces in person. And then we have to discuss with the designer exactly what they want to get out of the opportunity of being in a retail space, because it's different for each designers. Some designers or brands are just looking for exposure. Some want to test specific collections. So it's all very different, and it's always dynamic and changing. It's not all Black owned, it's not all African based, but I guess, you know, people respond to what they see in person on initial contact and build from there.
I appreciate that we're both giggling about the story. Thank you so much. And now, Jodi, I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Amazing, because it's an important question. We definitely want to hear from you. I was saying that Startup Fashion Week has been a place emerging designers can showcase their designs for 12 years. And I was saying time must go by when you're having so much fun with this amazing platform. And I know, because I recently got to interview a couple of people that travel from across Canada for this opportunity and how important it is to them. I'm curious how you've seen Canadian fashion evolve through Startup Fashion Week and through your platform.
Yeah, so that is true. We've actually been around for 13 years. We just had our 13th edition of Startup Fashion Week this year.
Amazing.
And yeah, so it's grown a lot. And we actually ourselves have sort of explored Canada by hosting our events in different cities as well. So we've hosted our event in Vancouver and Montreal, as well as, of course, Toronto. And we've had a lot of designers that have traveled to different places to showcase through our event as well. So we've had a really interesting opportunity to get to know the industry across the country in different ways. And it really is very, very different from province to province. That I can assure you. The industry is different. The expectations of running a business is very different. And, you know, the style and the fashion and the values are different as well. It really changes from province to province. For example, on the West Coast, particularly in BC, a lot of the fashion brands really make sure that they add values to sustainability to their brands as well. It's a really important value across the province. And so a lot of businesses, not just in fashion, but a lot of businesses in general, find ways to implement sustainability into their business practice. And so that's a really big deal, but I'm also seeing that becoming really important in businesses all across Canada, not just on the West Coast anymore. So things have changed, you know, in terms of how people run their business. And also it changes, you know, how people buy as well. So a lot of smaller businesses are doing made to order, which makes it more sustainable for them as a business. But the benefit of that for a lot of consumers is that things are more customized, and people are really very, very much interested in buying pieces that are going to last a long time. And so for them, having made to order pieces is really unique and makes things last a little longer sometimes as well.
Absolutely, 100%. And now, not to put you on the spot, Jodi, as well, but I'm curious, having done this for 13 years, you must have some success stories of brands that either, you know, were emerging at one point 10 years ago and now have blown up, or models or people who've walked through. Are there any names or people that come to mind that you're just so proud got to like grace the Startup Fashion Week stage and are now somewhere else?
You know, it's really, fashion is a very competitive business, I will say that. And when we host Startup Fashion Week, we host it knowing that not all of the businesses are going to survive. And I don't say that to make it sound like this is a very negative experience. It just means that it's a hard business to really be able to have a sustainable business in. And over the years, you know, we've also encountered a lot of other issues like COVID and things like that shut down a lot of small businesses. So I wish I could say that we had more success stories than we do. But one name that stands out is Zoba Martin. She showcased at Startup Fashion Week a few years ago, and she's still, you know, going on strong. She does a lot of bridal, and you know, she's had a lot of success. Actually, she's based in Toronto. She has a lot of success, so we're really proud that she's one of our alumni. But we've had lots of success stories. We had one brand actually not long after they showcased at Startup Fashion Week. This was maybe about 2 or 3 years ago. They actually landed, their brand was called Boutique, and they actually landed a commercial with Tim Hortons, and the commercial itself was kind of like a short story about their life as a fashion designer and, you know, the comfort that Tim Hortons gives them as a business owner and things like that. So it was really cool to see. So there's a lot of different types of success stories that come out of it.
100%. I will say Zoba's items can be purchased at Toronto Designers Market hilariously. And of course, she is maybe the epitome of the Canadian costume as somebody who is dressing the gentleman who runs Toronto, Drake. She does work on his wardrobe. So it's amazing that this one person has sort of touched both of you. And once was my braider before Drake took her from me. So she is quite the prolific talent, Zoba. We want her on the show. So this is our call out to Zoba. If you're watching, we would like to have you on the show. Yes. But also, it's amazing to see that she's done such amazing work with both of you. Next, we need her to dress Dee on stage.
We are waiting.
And then everyone will have had a Zoba moment.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of Canadian costume, Dee, while yes, you are Afro-Cuban and so proud, I love that you came and you performed music in Toronto and then you stayed and then you were on Canadian Idol.
Yeah.
Not a big deal, just this amazing show that we used to have. And I'm so curious, given, you know, your experience in both of these places, now living in the East Coast, being what I would define a Canadian musician, how does that definition feel or sit with you? Or is there a specific part of your identity that you prefer to highlight? Or how does it feel when you tour as a person with all of these, you know, mixed identities as part of yourself?
It's, you know, at times, once upon a time, it felt somewhat uncomfortable because often I wondered if I was Cuban enough or now Canadian enough, right? Because I'm coming with all these tools. Then after being in Canadian Idol, something that really stuck with me is that my individuality, what I bring from home, and the, you know, the life experiences that I have acquired here, as well as musically, it's gold. So to me, being an individual is extremely important. That's one of the things that I've learned so far when it came to being a musician in Canada. as a Cuban, but also as a Canadian, being you as you specifically, and not so much hold on to a flag was very important to me, holding on to myself, but also being able to showcase, what has injected my music in a way, and that is the experiences of the life, the life experiences as well as the music experiences that I've acquired in both places. It's always very interesting because I have chosen to not only do music in Spanish, so also do English. And really, when I first started performing in Canada, it was extremely important for me to see my growth through the language first. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to learn French because I really wasn't exposed to French communities. And at the time, I was just really focused on being able to speak with somebody other than, a Hispanic or a background of Latin American. Mm-hmm. And now I have come to realize that the things that I've worked so hard not to push it towards, audiences that are not necessarily of Latin American descent, it's not really a push, it's more of a sharing. And to me, that's very, very valuable.
Yeah, well, I've seen you perform, and I've seen people obviously be moved by words and language that they may not understand. And I know that we've discussed the fact that you're getting, more and more messages from the Spanish community asking for reels that are in English to be translated, and so that you're, welcoming your community in both spaces, which I think is amazing. You also recently did a tour that was an Ella Fitzgerald tribute tour.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you? Because I know she's such a powerhouse, and you, I think, almost sold out every single day. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what that was like, singing as one of the idols of your career?
It was nerve-wracking because there was a lot of questions in my brain. For example, for me, I'm such a big fan of Ella Fitzgerald, and based on her sound, I became very infatuated with vocal jazz because of her. So to perform songs that that people really identify or see as a Ella Fitzgerald song, and as well as doing this tribute, I was very afraid that people was looking to receive like the new Ella or mimicking Ella. So again, back to being an individual is realizing that what you bring, and that you're honoring somebody who had opened the doors for you. But it was amazing. Also, the fact that I do have a very strong accent, and I didn't have to change that to be able to honor the Queen of Jazz was an honor to me. And the very cool part of that whole thing is because I'm already booked for next year to do it again. So I'm going to have, so I'm going to have, again, that thrill and that experience again. And, the way that music like this, what it really does for me is just allows me to challenge myself, because to play or to sing songs that Ella Fitzgerald did, it takes, she wasn't human. I don't believe she was anyways. So for me, it pushes me, it pushes me into a place where out of my comfort zone. And I believe that we did a great job celebrating her during Black History Month. But at the same time, I feel very, very, very happy that I put myself into uncomfortable situations to become a better musician and a better vocalist every day.
You were amazing. I had the privilege of seeing it. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I appreciated that everybody, they weren't expecting, like you said, that sort of impersonator or tour. They wanted the Dee Hernandez version. They wanted it to sound like you, and I think they just wanted to celebrate good music. So it was just really, really nice to see.
Oh, it was beautiful. And traveling during the winter in Canada, that was my first time ever doing a tour in February. So that was challenging on itself. Because as you know, New Brunswick can get very, very snowy and it's scary on the roads, but I did it. I've been preparing for this my whole entire life.
You did do it. You did it all the way, like Halifax, St. Andrews, all over the place. While ill, I believe as well.
Yes, I was very sick. Yes, that was very fun too.
Yes, sure. It was. Jodi, I want to ask you a question that does also, though, relate to Karen. I think you both sort of have the same ethos, and I appreciate what you were saying, Jodi, about, you know, sustainability, made to order, people wanting these unique pieces, and why that's so important. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that we are in this Made in Canada movement. We are trying to shop Canadian. We are trying to avoid these tariffs. We're trying to celebrate our community, and I think that that really speaks to Startup Fashion Week's ethos. So I'm curious, why is it important to shop and celebrate Canadian now more than ever?
Yeah, so I think now more than ever, because we have a bit more support, you know, across the nation to really focus on what and to really kind of observe and appreciate what actually is being made here in Canada. Who are the, you know, talents that we can support? And you know, a few years ago, without that movement, people were still curious, and there was a lot of support for, you know, small businesses in general. But I think people are now really paying attention to the fact that we don't necessarily need to look, you know, beyond our borders to find really cool stuff. Like, we have a lot of very creative people here in our country, and we can support them and, you know, and build up our own economy, and, you know, see how that really helps each other. Because, you know, and as we all know, the fashion industry is not just like a one person sort of show. There's a lot of people that are involved in the creation part of a fashion business. You know, it employs a lot of people just to make one particular item. And so I think people are really interested in supporting our own economy and supporting each other. So I think it is really important right now to really observe who we can support at this point in the fashion world. Because I've seen a lot of talent, and, you know, I myself like to support the brands that are participating. So you know, I think it's just a really good opportunity. People are paying attention. They're a little more empathetic to support these businesses, and it's a good time. You know, it's a good time to do it, and it hopefully is not just a trend. Hopefully this is something that sticks.
100%. I mean, I wanted to add, Jodi, as well. I know that as part of like the Startup Fashion Week programming, you also do like mentor hours, and there's like panels and discussions and all these other things that happen, and you give the designers so many opportunities. I know this year, I think there was like a fragrance making opportunity, which is super cool.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about what comes with that Startup Fashion Week experience for anyone who might want to participate in future years?
Yeah, sure. So what sets us apart as a fashion week is the fact that we are focused on startup businesses. And so we operate kind of like a business incubator / fashion week for the designers that are participating. So we program all of our events with that in mind. It's not a runway every day, just like a traditional fashion week. That's not what our program is all about. It's really and truly about trying to get these designers to really start thinking about themselves as entrepreneurs, not just creators. Because at the end of the day, if they want to really succeed in this crazy world of fashion, they have to start thinking of themselves as entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And a lot of people who start businesses in fashion, they don't have a lot of experience or, you know, background in business. And so they kind of struggle with a lot of different parts of operation. And so this is an opportunity for them to really learn a little bit more about how to function as a business, and, you know, gives them an opportunity to make a lot of business connections and networking. So, for example, this year we had a couple of new events that we added, and they were quite successful. The feedback was amazing. So we did have a one-on-one speed consulting event. That was a new event for us, and that was a private event. So we didn't sell tickets for that. It was exclusively for the designers to participate. I invited industry experts in different areas of business to actually sit down one-on-one with each designer to give them feedback and to have an opportunity for the designers to ask questions, because often in business, having those one-on-ones, it costs a lot of money. And that's kind of that's the barrier for a lot of entrepreneurs to really actually start engaging with a lot of people in business. And so this gave them an opportunity to start those conversations without feeling, pressured financially, right? We also did, as you mentioned, we did a special event this year. We did a partnership with a small business, a new business called Radiates. They're also a startup business here in Toronto. And they are a cafe / gallery / fragrance lab. And we did a partnership with them where all of the designers went to their fragrance lab and created their own signature fragrance for their collection. It was a really, really beautiful experience. And I actually created a fragrance also for Startup Fashion Week, and I called it Front Row. That was the name of the fragrance. And we integrated the element of fragrance into the whole runway experience also this year, which has never been done before at any fashion week. So I'm always looking at how to be innovative in terms of producing my events. I am usually a little bit ahead of trends with how I produce the events. Unfortunately, I just don't get the media coverage that, quite honestly, I think we deserve. But it's really all about promoting the designers and making sure that they get a great experience out of it and that they feel prepared to run their business afterwards. Because a lot of them will go to other fashion events. They spend thousands of dollars and they get nothing out of it. And it's really unfortunate because their pockets aren't deep. They're just starting out. They don't know who to trust. And, it's hard to figure out how to navigate fashion as a business, right? So, so we program our events catering towards the designers that we feature on the runway, basically.
Amazing. That's awesome. And it reminds me a lot of what Toronto Designers Market is doing in terms of these runway to retail panels. Y'all need to have a call after this call and figure out how to work together. But as we start to wrap up, I did want to ask one last question to all of you because, we've been doing this for so many episodes. And I think that the most pivotal thing that we're experiencing is community, which is the name of the show. And you've all built amazing communities around yourself, whether it is, the groups of people that are coming down to Toronto Designers Market to shop, to see art, to experience the same communities that are going to the runways year after year at Startup Fashion Week, or, celebrating entrepreneurship, or it's the fans that are going to a Dee Hernandez show, whether it is part of Canadian Music Week or now Departure Fest here in Toronto, or whether it's over in the East Coast. So I'm curious how community impacts that Canadian costume idea. Is there any element of the community that you're seeing that is either buying or participating that has that impact on what you think of when you think of a Canadian costume? Or is it, is it more of a welcoming space, or are you considering, is it a part of the audience, a market vibe, or what do you think about who that Canadian costume is when you're thinking about your community? Karen, if you want to start, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
Always putting me on the spot. I think for us, community is about the space that we create for Canadian designers. Because for us, we are not just retail, we are retail, resource, and education. And it's not only retail, resource, and education for designers, but also for the clients that come in. Because a lot of times when they come in here, they haven't heard about a lot of these Canadian brands that we offer and that we carry. So part of what we do is actually educate them about these Canadian brands. And a lot of times we are one of the only spaces that these brands are in other than being online. So it becomes a mutual kind of connection in the space where we're educating them, they're giving us their feedback, what they would like to see. And it becomes a beautiful interchange and exchange.
Amazing. And then Dee, why don't you tell us a little bit about your community, it being, this sort of Canadian community now where you are, but I know that it is a smorgasbord of people, whether it's the people you have on stage with you that make up your community, because I think sometimes you have like an 8-piece band, or whether it's the amazing audiences that you have. What is community?
So that's a good point. When it comes to my musicians, my band changes often, and it's all based on who's available and the location that we might be performing at. So the community of musicians that I've worked with, for me, is number one, because they help me transmute the sound that it lives in my head, right? So that to me is extremely important. And also it's for me, I like to, and I think I mentioned this before, with my music, I like to create a bridge. So through the cultural experiences that I had in Cuba, plus, the places that I've performed as well within Canada and Latin America. So where we can basically coexist without having to feel that we are so different. And I find that is very important here in the East Coast, because there is very small pockets of minorities being, out in the open, like it is now, especially back in the 2000s. So to be able to create communities of people that come from every parts of the world, that have shows in Canada as their home, as well those who who have lived here their whole entire life and come to my shows, to me that is extremely important, because again, I'm doing exactly what I want to do with music, which is unite and create community and create a bridge and meet at a neutral common ground, which is come and enjoy my music. Let me share that with you.
Yeah, perfect. And then Jodi, same question. How does community play a factor in Startup Fashion Week? Because I know so many people, it's like fashion and that desire to be an entrepreneur and successful is the baseline, but people come from all walks of life, all backgrounds, and become part of Startup Fashion Week, whether they're a photographer, a creative, or they are the designers themselves. So how is community sort of the backbone of Startup Fashion Week?
Yeah, so that's a very great question, and community is really embedded into Startup Fashion Week for sure. And in fact, I was inspired when I launched Startup Fashion Week. I was inspired by the tech startup industry here in Toronto, because it was so very different going to events in the tech world from going to events in the fashion space. Because I found that people at fashion events, they didn't really talk to each other. I never felt welcome at most of the events, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. And when I went to tech startup events, you just walk into the door and you'll have 5 random strangers just all of a sudden approach you and ask you, questions like, hey, how are you? What are you building, or what are you creating, and how can I help you? There was a lot of sharing, and I really loved that environment, and so I wanted to create that in the fashion world here in Toronto or across Canada. And I think I've achieved that because people that come to our events, like you said, it's a very diverse background of people. We get people who are not even part of the fashion industry, like lawyers and real estate agents, that come to our events simply because they want to connect and meet with people. And at the end of the day, I always encourage the designers who are participating, to network as much as possible, but to really remember and focus on the fact that at the end of the day, the most important thing about business is building authentic relationships. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's really important when you're at an event, instead of just having like a fake conversation with someone for 5 minutes, actually get to know them and build a lasting relationship. And to me, that's more important because, you can help each other out in so many different ways, but it should never be one-sided. And so that to me is a really important takeaway for the designers that I'm coaching, is to make sure that they try to build authentic relationships with people.
Amazing. Awesome. I love everything that you three said all episode, but especially that community piece. And I am honored to be a part of all three of your communities. I hope people listening are interested in learning more about Startup Fashion Week, Toronto Designers Market, or Dee Hernandez, who is an amazing talent. Thank you for singing a little bit for us. I'm still thinking about it. I'm going to, like, the single is on my phone. I'm so excited. So thank all three of you so much for your time today. It was a wonderful episode. And join us again next week, May 27th, here on YouTube and Instagram as we explore fluid futures ahead of Pride Month, because June is right around the corner. Where did the year go? Anyway, thank you so much for watching.